The verdict of obedience of the Sharia court against the disobedient Muslim wife. It is written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights reserved. All characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a tribal system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs in a review to be printed in a newspaper, general journal, or a school or university magazine. This is a love story about three Muslim girls who are subjected to gross injustice, severe violence, and abhorrent persecution by Muslim men, religious leaders, Sharia court judges, and police officers in the Islamic community and the religion of Islam, and its hostile, hateful, and abusive teachings against women's rights, which are innumerable. For example, beating of women, child marriage, circumcision of the private parts of Muslim girls, which is known universally as female genital mutilation, or FGM, slaying them in oral killings, inequality between males and females in inheritance, testimony in court, marriage, divorce, men's guardianship over women, controlling their lives and destinies as if they are minors, physically handicapped or mentally retarded, and forcing them to wear the ibaya, veil, hijab, niqab, or the humiliating black burqa as if they are frightening ghosts. Muslim men are allowed by the Quran to have sex or rather rape without the need for marriage, captive women of war, such as wives, daughters, sisters, and even mothers of the defeated enemies, who are called unclean infidels, and brother of monkeys and pigs. Islam forbids a Muslim woman to become a president of a country, or a boss at work, or a judge in court, and she is strictly forbidden to lead men or women in prayer as an imama. Moreover, the Prophet Muhammad said the woman is an unclean creature, just like a dog and a donkey, and therefore as a defiled being, she annuls and defiles the man's prayer if she passes in front of him while he is praying. Many Islamic countries prevent women from going to school and work, and they are not permitted to drive cars, bicycles, or motorbikes. They are forbidden to practice any kind of sports, such as soccer, basketball, volleyball, and tennis, and they are not allowed to go to gymnastics, beaches or swimming pools, cinemas or theaters, or act as heroines in movies, or actors in the stage in plays, or compete in beauty contests such as Miss World or Miss Universe. None of the Muslim women and girls is allowed to leave the house without her husband or with a muhram. The woman is forbidden to marry such as her father or a brother. They are also not allowed to fall in love with men before marrying, or choose their future husbands or life partners. The story is about three innocent girls, namely Intisar, Firdos, and Muna. Chapter 60. Seeking wise advice from the Imam of God's house. The next morning, when the sad lover Sami regained his senses and recovered from the stupor of the large amount of homemade liquor he had consumed the night before, he felt such a headache that it was as if his head had caught fire. He tried to open his eyes, but he couldn't. By the way, making and selling alcohol is forbidden in Sudan because it is a Muslim country and is punishable by Sharia law. There are no places for making or selling alcohol and practicing prostitution, except for prostitutes' houses and illegal cigarette bars, which are called anadi, or nightclubs. These houses of prostitution and and prohibited liquors are exposed from time to time to police raids and attacks, which is called al-kasha. This is secret nightclubs make a type of locally strong liquor with a high alcohol density and lethality, which may reach between 70 to 80%. When a person consumes a small amount of it, he becomes dead drunk. And if his skin is removed while he is alive, he will not feel it. He usually urinates and defecates on his clothes, and his body becomes buttressed like the decomposing dead corpse that was exhumed from its grave on the said day after its burial. This was the state of the bewildered drunkard lover Sami Osman al-Tayyib when he resurrected from his clinical death the next morning. Pharisees sniffed through his nose a very stinking smell. It smells like a stinky mixture of vomit, sweat, urine, feces, farts, and local liquor. Sami saw that he is sleeping in a dirty sewer or a filthy gutter. Secondly, he felt that there was a huge heavy weight lying on his chest. He began to struggle to free himself from this enormous mountain weight. It felt as if an overturned garbage truck was on top of his body. He calculated that he would choke to death from the stench of nausea and the heavy elephant lying on his body. He also saw that he was dead, fallen to hell, and Satan torments him with a pitchfork in his hands. Somehow Sami was able to forcibly open his eyes and look around. He saw a huge black creature lying on his chest. At first his mind translated the enormous body into a fearsome beast or a boogie man. As a result of his hasty conclusion, he was paralyzed for a few minutes. He tried to scream, but his voice let him down. He can hear his own heart beat like an African drum. Every hair on his body stood up. After a few minutes, he closed his eyes and opened them again as if he was in a nightmare. And when his eyes assured him that he was neither sleeping nor hallucinating, he raised his hand and touched the head of the scary creatures. He felt sharp nails or long thorns pierce his hand. This sensation caused him to gather his strength and push the fearsome creature away from his body. As soon as the monstrous huge body rolled away, the frightened Sami jumped off the bed like a yo-yo. He looked back and saw a huge black woman lying on the bed completely naked. The woman's face made the sad lover remember his night's adventure in the tavern. Her frightening looking face made him wonder how he had agreed to sleep with such an ugly woman. Then he searched for his clothes, and when he found them, he put them on and left the hut of the prostitute as if he was fleeing from the bottomless pit of a tigress. The grieving lover fled, leaving behind his beautiful and ugly nocturnal girlfriend Kaltumaya, who snored loudly as if crying from her light nose. Then the sad lover came out of the hut like a missile fire from inside the den of a lioness, aiming at the outer door. The terrified Sami saw many drunks lying on the ground in a deep sleep, as if they were sleeping in a hiding place of criminals or a den of thieves or his fellow sinners who were tormented in hell. They appeared to him so miserable and so hideous to look at. Sami recognized the face of a perplexed drunkard among the inhabitants of hell as the face of his night babysitter or his alcohol Samir or the night counselor from the night of drinking and orgy. He was the one who claimed to be a good citizen and admitted that he was a true Muslim but does all kinds of evils and vices. Mr. Sharafuddin with Musmar Al-Aghbaj was still asleep and snoring loudly as if he was howling like a ghoul or ogre, a dudu hyena, or a raised zombie, Baati. When he conf- when he confused, lover Sami fled from the brothel and power of the ugly and beautiful prostitute Kaltumaya, daughter of the late Mr. Karbuz and mother of the imprisoned criminal Abu Shakhuro Del Kalib. When the sad lover Sami realized that he had gone to the house of vice and evil people to solve his problem, he decided that he must then go to the house of virtue and righteous people to find a solution to his intractable dilemma. Therefore, the heartbroken boyfriend of Intisar decided from the house of the ugly prostitute to go to the house of the beautiful God. He wants to go to the mosque now. He looked at his watch and it was 4 a.m. in the morning. It is still early and the new day is very dark. He walked aimlessly for a few minutes until he met an old man walking along the narrow alley. The bearded old man supports his bent body with a large walking cane. Sami greeted him politely and asked him to show him the nearest mosque. The old man told him that he was on his way to the mosque for the morning prayer. The heartbroken lover grabbed the old man's other hand and slowly walked with him towards the house of Allah. As they approached the mosque, the two righteous Muslim believers began to hear the voice of the muazzin from the top of the minaret, calling people to the first morning prayer of the new day. The sad lover is determined in his heart now to seek good guidance and wise advice from his eminence, the blessed Maulana, the Imam of that mosque, after the morning prayer. The pious young Muslim, Sami, entered the mosque compound, performed ablution as usual, and walked into the prayer sanctuary. He found some men inside the spacious chapel. He sat in a corner and waited for the prayer to begin. A young bearded man approached him and whispered in his ear, "Excuse me, brother, did you perform the greeting prayer?" "What is solution prayer?" Sami asked in wonder. "You must pray 2 rak'ats to greet the mosque." "Am I supposed to salute the mosque by praying over it?" "Yes, of course. It is a required sunnah of our gracious Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace." Then the sad boy Sami got up and performed 2 rak'ats without understanding the wisdom behind them. And he asked himself, "Is the mosque a person who should be greeted by everyone who comes to pray in it?" There is no rational answer possible. When he had finished greeting Mr. Mosque through praying to him, the sad lover looked at the happy, bearded young man to see if he had done all that was necessary. The bearded youth smiled happily, approached him and asked, "What is your name, my faithful brother in Islam?" "My name is Sami Asma Tayyib." "Nice to meet you, Sami. My name is Yasin Sha'addin Shamsuddin. Are you a new visitor to this mosque, my brother in the faith?" "I have come to seek the guidance of His Eminence, the Imam of this mosque." "You have come to the right place and the right person. The blessed Imam Maulana Sheikh Al-Huda will come in a few minutes. He is one of the greatest living saints of God in Sudan. He has great knowledge of Islam. He is also one of the best Imams we have in this city. Graduated from Ashar Sharif University in Egypt. Does this mean that he is a man of God, the all-knowing?" "Yes, he is. Every day after the Fajr prayer in the morning and after the Isha prayer at night, we gather in a small circle and Maulana Sheikh Al-Huda teaches about the various sciences of Islam. He always invites us to ask questions. No matter how intractable your problem is, he gives you the best advice to solve it. Once you attend his religious lecture one time, you will never miss it again. This sounds very promising and wonderful. Instead of talking more, Sam suddenly saw the curious, bearded young man standing up and rushing toward the entrance. Then he grabbed an old man's hand, kissed it, and bowed respectfully to him. And the sad lover guessed that this is the blessed Imam Maulana Sheikh Al Huda. Then the all believing men got to their feet and made 4 rows. As soon as the virtuous Imam reached his front place, the prayer began. It only took 5 minutes. When the dawn prayer ended, two sets of the worshippers left the prayer sanctuary hall and left the mosque. Only 12 young men remained with their Imam and the newcomer. These 12 men, along with the grieving lover, Sami, were asked to form a circle. Then the well-known Imam, Sheikh Al-Huda, came forward and joined the small group. Sami can now take a closer look at his bearded face, which is adorned with a white beard. He is an old man with a big beard. He wears a white jalabiya and 5-meter long turban draped over his bald head, making him look like a terrorist leader rather than a man of God. Smiling most of the time, his face is calm. When he speaks slowly but loudly. When he speaks, he suddenly stops and smiles. His listeners imitate everything he does. When he smiled, they smiled. When he laughed, they laughed too. When he coughed, they coughed like him. But when he was angry, they were afraid. Anyway, Imam Sheikh Al Huda that very morning lectured his listeners about what God has prepared for the believers in paradise. He told them that every believing Muslim will enter paradise on the day of resurrection. Bad Muslims, who are also called stubborn or disobedient Muslims, will enter heaven after being punished in hell for their bad deeds. The Imam spent a great deal of time describing what God has prepared for the believers in paradise. God has promised for every male 40 virgin girls. If the believer had a natural death, he would have 40 beautiful girls. But if he dies as a martyr in the jihad, in the way of Allah, he will have 72 virgins in heaven. Each of these beautiful virgins is named in the Holy Quran as Al-Hurriya. Virgins are very beautiful girls that human language cannot describe them. One could see the veins in their legs because of their white colors. Virgin has a pure color like red wine in a white bottle. They are always virgins. Someone asked His Eminence, the Blessed Imam, about this strange claim. How does a virgin remain a virgin after a man takes away her virginity? Although he still understood the significance of the question, the Blessed Imam asked the inquirer to make his question more clear and acceptable. I mean to say, our Honorable Imam, how can a virgin in paradise remain a virgin after a man's dick enters her pussy and breaks her hymen? Paulana laughed for a while and everyone laughed with him. Then he said while smiling happily, fortunately that our blessed Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, said in one of his authentic hadiths, Dahman, Dahman. So if a man raises from the body of a virgin, she returns pure and virgin again. This means that the Almighty God will automatically make her a virgin every time she loses her virginity. Sami wanted to ask the Blessed Maulana about the meaning of the strange word repeated in the hadith of the Prophet, Dahman, Dahman. But another believer asked this question in front of him. Dahman, said the Imam, smiling happily, is the act and sound of sexual intercourse between a man and his hurriya or virgin having. And that is when the man inserts his erect penis into the vagina of the naked virgin, rubs it hard, enters it and takes it out quickly until he ejaculates his semen in overwhelming pleasure and great happiness, Sami wants to demand more clarification of such a strange and immoral teachings. But he is afraid of being accused as an atheist, communist, infidel, or apostate from Islam and then thrown out of the mosque or killed in one way or another inside the prayer sanctuary. The virtuous Imam continued to talk about this interesting subject, making him and his listeners sexually excited and their dicks erected like cannons over war tanks. These beautiful virgins will be given to faithful Muslim men as eternal sexual partners. If a Muslim gets one or four wives in this lower world of life, the 40 virgins will be added to his harem in the upper life. Although afraid of being misunderstood, this time Sami took a calculated risk and posed a question to the Imam's ever smiling face. What about the woman who was created with us now in our world? Sami asked. What will the believing Muslim woman get in heaven? She won't get anything. There will be no 72 male virgins in heaven for a woman. Only Muslim men like you and me will have virgins in heaven. God did not create young virgin guys to have sex with the woman of this world in the hereafter. Sami wanted to say this is unfair, but he swallowed his objection and remained silent. And he understood that this objection is explained by saying God is unjust, and this is the worst of polytheism or a disbelief in Islam, which makes a person an infidel, an apostate who deserves to be killed. When he saw Sami remain silent, Maulana continues his lecture on sex and the virgins of heaven. The messenger of God, may God bless him and grant him peace, said in one of his authentic hadiths that the majority of Muslim women will go to hell. But if a faithful Muslim woman goes to heaven, she will be added to the heavenly virgins and again become the wife of her earthly husband. Someone asked a question that Sami hadn't thought of. And what about the Muslim woman who died without marrying a Muslim man in this life? What about her? Maulana asked anxiously. The smile died on his lips and his face became extremely restless. Sami realized that the highly educated Imam was now facing a difficult and unanswerable question. The inquirer decided to spare the troubled Imam the burden of answering his difficult question by cancelling it. But another curious believer explained the inevitable question. Our blessed Imam, the new inquirer says, if this good Muslim woman dies and goes to heaven, who will be her husband in heaven? Because her faith in this worldly life did not make her a life partner for any Muslim man. In other words, she remained unmarried and a virgin all her life. God only knows who her husband is. There is no mention of such a situation in the Holy Quran, nor in the blessed Sunnah of our beloved Prophet and Messenger. Sami and the other two inquirers want to say this is unfair, but they fear being seen as saying that Allah of Islam is a misogynistic God, avoiding accusing God of being the God of chauvinism and misogyny in his holy books, the Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet. The three swallowed their conclusion. After this apparent failure, the blessed Imam quickly changed the subject of sexy virgins and started talking about drinking wine in heaven. He said, drinking wine is strictly forbidden in this worldly life, but in the higher life, drinking wine is allowed for believers. The immortal boys will go about with jugs of pure wine in their hands and visit the faithful men who recline on comfortable sofas and pour wine into their glasses. Every man has 100 beardless boys. These boys are very beautiful. If you see them, you think they are all the scattered, shining birds or sparkling jewels. Sami wondered why God commands in his law that if someone drinks alcohol, he must be flogged with 80 lashes. Why is drinking alcohol forbidden in this lower world and halal drinking alcohol in the higher life? Again, the skeptical Thomas Sami preferred to keep his doubts to himself, or else they might be interpreted as defying God's unfathomable wisdom. Anyway, while His Eminence Maulana Sheikh Al Huda was describing the beauty of virgin girls of paradise and the taste of heavenly wine, he mentioned two things which disturbed the sad lover. First, he said that if the beauty of all the girls in this life is gathered together and given to one girl, she will be she will not be equal in beauty to a single virgin in heaven. Even Mrs. World, Mrs. Universe, American Bollywood movie actresses, and Indian Bollywood superstar heroines cannot compete with the Huriya virgins in heaven. When the virtuous Imam made such a comparison between the girls of this earth's life and the virgins in the life of the highest paradise, the handsome lover Sami was shaken in his love with the lovely Intisar. He also remembers the unfair comparison he made with his night advisor Sheikh ad-Din with Musmar al-Aqbash between the ugly prostitute Kaltumaya and his beautiful girlfriend Intisar. Secondly, the blessed Maulana said that whoever drinks from the wine of this worldly life will not be allowed to taste the good wine of heaven. Sami felt sorry for the bitter homemade liquor he had drunk last night with his night counselor, Sharafuddin with Musmar, or as a so-called honor of the religion of Islam. When the virtuous Maulana Al-Imam al-Mubarak finishes interesting worldly lecture on the practice of fornication, drunkenness, and orgies in paradise, he invited his listeners to ask their question. The listeners asked many questions about the virgins and wine in heaven. Sami did not care about any of these unethical, inhumane, and unjust questions for the girls of paradise, with the exception of some abnormal and strange questions. Someone asked Imam Maulana whether the virgin of heaven will have a circumcised and purified pussy like the girl of the earth who are genitally mutilated, or will she be an uncircumcised girl like the daughters of the infidels, such as the Christians, the Jewish, the Hindus, and the Buddhists? The virtuous Imam laughed and said, frankly, that he had no knowledge because neither the Holy Quran nor the honorable hadiths of the Prophet mentioned that. But as a virtuous Imam and one of the righteous scholars of God, he can issue a fatwa in this regard. According to his opinion and fatwa, since the Holy Prophet encouraged the purification of circumcision, or as a female genital mutilation of the genitals of Muslim girls in this world, it is natural and logical to conclude that God certainly circumcised the pussy of every virgin in heaven. In addition, the Imam said, the virgin of paradise does not urinate, does not defecate, and does not become pregnant. No matter how many times she got fucked in her virgin pussy by the dick of the faithful Muslim man in paradise, the Huriya girl will never become pregnant and doesn't give birth to children. Whatever food she eats, the water she drinks, and the wine she sips, while will all come out of her body like sweat, and her sweat will be like fragrant perfume and smell like musk. Once again, the doubting lover wanted to say, So why did God create a large ass, big buttocks, and anus hole for the virgin, since she does not need them to defecate? But he kept his question in his skeptical mind for fear that his inquiry would be considered disgusting and immoral. As Sam anticipated, if he asks about urinating through the virgin's pussy, he will be told that she needs her pussy for fucking with the man's cock and providing pleasure to her sex partner. A young Muslim man who is very interested in virgins' private parts asks another question. Then, what will happen to the sperm of the man's fluid, which are ejaculated in the millions inside the pussy of the Virgin of Paradise? The highly educated Imam knew the answer to this difficult question because he remembered an Egyptian student asking the same question to their university professor when they were studying at Al Azhar Sharif University in Cairo City. He laughed first and then said happily, "The Virgin of Heaven has no eggs or a uterus. She has nothing but a small, tight pussy that God created for the sexual enjoyment of a faithful Muslim man. A virgin cannot bear children in heaven because she has neither womb nor ova." But the Imam's laughter died quickly when another clever Muslim man hit him with a difficult question with no answer. Then what will happen to the earthly Muslim wife when her husband's penis has sex with her and ejaculates in his semen into her pussy in heaven? You cannot tell us she cannot have children because we all know she had eggs and a uterus and had kids when she was here. Instead of accepting defeat or saying only God knows best, the virtuous Imam looked at the inquirer for a while and then angrily said, "These kinds of questions and doubts came from the accursed Satan." Then he turned his bearded face to the other men and said, "Are there any more good questions before I go home?" When the eminent Imam answered all the perverted sexual questions and was about to leave, the sad lover Sam stopped him and started asking his question. "O respected Imam, I've come here to seek your advice and guidance regarding a serious problem that I have faced in my life. I saw a girl and wanted to marry her, but my father stood against me because the girl is from a poor family and I am from a rich family." The virtuous Imam says, "Your father was definitely wrong." Then he touched his long beard and continued saying, "Our holy Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, said to all Muslims, marry while you are poor, you are poor people, and God will enrich you. But my father bribed the girl's older half brother and asked him to marry her to another man. And this evil brother acted as a guardian and made his sister's marriage with the other man without her consent, presence, and knowledge. Did the girl go and live with the other man as husband and wife? Not at all. She ran away from home because the Sharia court issued a verdict of obedience against her. The judge of the Islamic court also ordered the policeman to take her by force to her alleged Muslim husband's house as a disobedient wife. Then she fled to a Khartoum theater and is now staying with a Christian family. Why does a Muslim girl go to a Christian family and not to a Muslim family home? I don't know why, but I knew that a priest from the Christian church promised to solve her problem and send her to a Western country. How does a Christian priest solve her problem unless she is a Christian like him? She left Islam and converted to Christianity. You mean to say that she has become an apostate Muslim and a Christian infidel? Yes, our blessed Imam, the girl has done that. May the curses of God and his angels and all people be upon her and her family, whether they are alive or dead. including their animals. Silence prevailed inside the prayer sanctuary after Maulana cursed the apostate Muslim girl and her relatives and animals. Listen, young Muslim man, following the Imam speaking with anger. The girl who ran away from her family and her husband and rejected her religion is not good for anything. She deserves the death penalty for apostasy. She was forced to do so. Tell me, who forced her to be an infidel and apostate except the accursed Satan? Worse than the devil, he is my evil father. I seek refuge with Allah from the accursed Satan. Why did you say that your father is worse than the devil? Because he's the one who caused my girlfriend and fiancée to run away from her home and become an apostate Muslim. Why don't you forget that bad apostate girl and find the good Muslim girl and marry her? I love the girl, I must marry her. Didn't you just say that she is already married to someone else? I have not and I will not accept such a false summary. It was just a conspiracy between my arrogant father, the girl's criminal elder brother, who acted as her guardian, and the Mazoon, who is the evil Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk. Listen, young man, Maulana Sheikh Al-Huda shouted with great anger, do not forget that you are in a place of worship. This mosque is also one of the houses of God. Accordingly, if you say any more obscene words against the blessed Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the Imam of the largest mosque in this city, I will order these 12 men to beat you and then expel you from this holy house of Allah. Maulana Sheikh Marzouk is not a good moral man or a righteous Imam of a mosque as you think. He conspired with my evil father because he wanted me to marry his daughter Samia. Did you reject a decent Muslim girl who was born and raised in the house of virtue and received a good upbringing from childhood? And now you want to associate yourself with a cursed woman who fled from her Muslim husband and her family and sold her religion for a cheap price and became an apostate Muslim and a Christian infidel woman. Whatever she did, I still love her. I don't like the girl Samaya, who is the daughter of the Imam of the largest mosque in this city. Then go and follow that cursed apostate girl until she takes you to hell with her. That girl is innocent. She's a victim of her circumstances. Only the hypocritical Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, her Kenura brother Omar, and my evil father Mr. Osman Taib deserve to go to hell and burn there forever. When the grieving lover Sami openly contradicted and challenged Maulana Sheikh Al-Huda's religious beliefs and firm Islamic convictions in the righteousness of the Imam of Al-Jami' Al-Kabir, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, by sending another Imam and Maulana to hell, the 12 men imitated their spiritual leader and shouted aloud at the blasphemous boy. It was the Imam Maulana Sheikh Al-Huda himself who first started beating the damning intruder and was followed in savage attack by the 12 other faithful men. On that fateful morning, the grieving lover was mercilessly beaten until he lost consciousness and his body became lifeless. His severely beaten and horribly damaged body was then carried away and dumped in a dirty dumpster of a filthy trash container in front of the mosque. When the grieving lover regained consciousness just over an hour later, he found himself lying in a filthy garbage dumpster outside the mosque. Every part of his body caused him a terrible, unbearable pain. He felt as if he was attacked by jungle beasts or a ruthless Muslim terrorist. Then he gathered his remaining strength and rose to his shaky feet. After that, he came out and bore all the trash of the dirty garbage container on his clothes. He is like a zombie that has come out of his grave after 1 hour from the time of his burial. With much difficulty, he began dragging his savagely battered body. He walks with great difficulty as if his feet are planted in the ground. No one saw the beloved Al Habib Al Walhal Sami when he entered the mosque, and after a while, some bearded young men carried his dead body and threw it in a garbage container of dirty trash outside the house of God, except for the leader of the spies Mr. Tia, and the other two Zaks, Jigir and Nisir. This, these 12 angry Muslim terrorists and their bearded, hairless imam dumped Sami's dead body into a dumpster as if it were a dirty, decomposing corpse. They concluded that he had died like an unclean pig and that his cursed soul had fallen into hell. They also considered him like an unclean dog who dared to enter their immaculate mosque and desecrated their holy sanctuary with words of blasphemy. They would not have become so angry and mad even if they had discovered a damning Jew posing as a Muslim in their midst, but he was a spy for Israel. They felt as if senior demon devil himself had visited them in human form. Despite this, the grieving lover was resurrected from hell after more than 60 minutes spent in the filthy dumpster. For more than an hour, his soul remained suspended between heaven and earth. He was very lucky because when he was dumped into the filthy garbage container, the stray dogs were asleep. Otherwise, he would have been eaten alive by those emaciated, hungry dogs who had no known owners. It is common in Sudan for illegitimate children to be born and then thrown into the trash by their mothers. Unfortunately, most of those unwanted children will be eaten by stray dogs while they are still alive. No Muslim girl or her family can raise an illegitimate baby or a bastard child in an Islamic society if she conceived it through adultery and deliver it out of the Islamic marriage bond. Chapter 61. Suicide, the only available solution for the sad lover. The grieving, mercilessly attacked and brutally beaten lover Sami Osman al-Taib emerged from the mister an hour later and began dragging his battered corpse to the main street and waited for a taxi. When he found a taxi driver, he stopped him, got into his cab and asked the cabbie to take him to the Al Taysir bus station. Mr. Tia, the ringleader, and his two spies, Jigir and Nisir, followed him in another taxi. One there, Sami bought his ticket and got on the 6:30 a.m. bus. As the bus started to move forward, his mind started to slip into his thoughts. He advances towards his beloved and fiancée Intisar physically and emotionally, but retreats from her mentally and spiritually. His mind is trapped into two dimensions. He faces a serious dilemma. He struggles to bring these two dimensions together. The dilemma faced by the beloved Hayran Sami is a million times more difficult than the three dilemmas faced by his beloved girlfriend, who is deviant from the law Intisar, who was without shelter, money, and shoes in front of the gate of the military base and the house of slavery of Major Sanosni, and in front of the place of worship of the unbelieving Christians. That means the Christian church. He has to choose between his religion, Islam, and his apostate girlfriend. If he chooses his blasphemous Christian girlfriend, he must give up his entire world. In In the blink of an eye, everyone and everything will be lost. He will be an outcast and a homeless person. Even his best friend Salah will hate him and boycott him. Everyone else will boycott him too, including his friends Walid, Muna, and Badriya. His mother, Maryam, his mother and his brothers and sisters will hate him and disown him. He will also be condemned by Sharia court as an apostate and sent to the gallows. And when he dies such a disgraceful death, he will go to hell and burn with other infidels forever. There are These are the two options to the core of his difficult dilemma that his apostate girlfriend asks him to choose between. Sami can choose to follow Iblis, the devil, and his demons, but not his apostate friend and her infidels. He knows he has a few hours to make his final decision. Until now, Sami felt that he had not found any good ground on which to stand and make his final decision. He went to the bad Muslims in the unclean brothel and par and abused and humiliated and they abused and humiliated him. He turned to the righteous Muslim of the holy house of God, so they disbelieved him, hated him, and beat him brutally, and then threw his dead body in the dirty garbage container outside their mosque. Accordingly, the grieving lover is now left to make up his own mind. He recalled the words of a poet in which he said, "My destiny in life is like fine flour thrown among the thorns." Then they asked barefoot people on a windy day to collect it. But when the task became impossible for them, they said to each other, "Leave him." So how do you add happiness to the man whose Lord cursed him? These sad poetic verses made Sam sink even deeper into his problem. The fairest thought arose in his troubled heart that he might lose his mind like the poet of the above verses if his beloved girlfriend walked out of his life and became like the bad lover case. And another idea disturbed his consciousness. So how can he think of marrying a girl who rejected her religion and homeland? But the idea of not marrying Intisar made him think of suicide. Sami found that suicide was the only solution left open to him. His mind also assured him that there was no solution for him in Islam. He realized that Sharia law is the main reason for their insolvable problem. Why are these Islamic laws indisputable, irrefutable, undeniable, incomparable, and second to none? For the first time, Sami found himself pointing the finger at his own religious laws. Before that fateful day, when he learned of his Muslim girlfriend's apostasy, he always blamed his evil father and other conspirators. He also blamed the judge of the Islamic Sharia court for forcing the innocent minor girl Firdaus to live with his evil father, who raped her to death under the pretext of permissible Islamic halal marriage. Sami never asked himself why the Sharia court judge had such absolute, indisputable, and unchallengeable authority to pass such an inhumane law, call it the verdict of obedience against the alleged disobedient Muslim wife. Through this unjust and misogynistic law, his evil father, through the cops, kidnapped the innocent girl Firdaus, raped her, starved her, and beat her to death. This same law promoted his beloved Intisar to flee her home and vagrant in the streets of Khartoum city until she fell victim to the damned Christian infidels who brainwashed her and converted her to their distorted and corrupt religion. Moreover, before that time, the grieving lover did not try to find out who gave the evil Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk the authority to marry Muslim girls to men without consulting and attending them or obtaining their prior, prior permissions? And why did he allow the older brother Umar, the so-called lawful Muslim guardian, according to divine law, the right to sell his two sisters, Intisar and Firdos, as sex slaves under the pretext of permissible Islamic marriage? These two fake marriages are behind all the problems that his beloved girlfriend, her late sister, and their family suffer from, and she is still suffering. Even female slaves would not be subjected to such mistreatment by their masters. Although these two marriages were based on deceit and evil intrigue, they remained valid and as such recognized by the law. So the grieving Muslim lover began to see why his apostate fiancée believed that there was no solution to their problem in Islam. Only Christianity, as Intisar discovered, was the solution left open to them. However, Sami's mind vehemently rejected such a solution. Death preferred to him than accept the false Christian religion. He was taught from childhood to detest Christianity. He believes that it is a perverted religion and all its Christian followers are infidels and they are on their way to hell. While he was balancing the negatives and positives in solving the intractable problem he was facing since yesterday, the third lover began to contemplate the possibility of returning to his father, Sayyid Osman al-Tayyib, and Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and apologizing to them for not following their advice. If he marries the Muslim girl Sumaya, the daughter of Maulana, the Imam of the largest mosque, what will be the future of the apostate poor girl Intisar? Will she return to her city and accept Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali as her legal Muslim husband? Sami knows that Intisar will not do that abomination unless she is forced to do so. He then imagined the policeman dragging her around like a Jariya girl or a slave or a handicapped slave and then taking her to her alleged selfish husband. He remembered how her sister Firdos was kidnapped by 5 policemen and dragged to the so-called House of Obedience, where she was brutally raped and butchered by his evil father. If his beloved Intisar meets the same sad end, his brutal and demonic father will be guilty of destroying an entire family. He himself will also be indirectly guilty of destroying the lives of 2 innocent sisters and their innocent brother who died by suicide because of his selfish love for his poor sister. Wherefore his mind immediately rejected such a selfish solution. Once again his perplexed mind thought of giving in to the desire of his beloved Intisar to apostate from Islam and convert to Christianity. Once again, his perplexed mind thought of giving in to the desire of his beloved girlfriend Intisar to apostate from Islam and convert to Christianity. In spite of this, another voice began to call from within him, shouting in his ears, telling him, if you do such an abominable act, people everywhere will hate you. They will call you a cowardly Muslim and a cheap man who sold his religion, his people, and his country because of an infidel woman and a visa to migrate to a secular Western country. You will live with a troubled conscience for the rest of your life. Then the grieving lover began to cry bitterly. Tears followed like heavy raindrops from his eyes. His train of thought was suddenly interrupted by the bus driver announcing their arrival at the food huts in the town of Alfao. All passengers disembarked for a half an hour rest. Sami got up from his seat and got down. He decided not to continue his journey to Khartoum city. He finally felt like he had made his wise decision. His mind told him to go back to his city Gadarif and forget about the apostate and traitors, traitors girl Intisar. She no longer deserves his love because she sold her religion, her country, and her love. As the blessed Imam Sheikh Al Huda said to him in the mosque, where he was subjected to a terrorist attack because of his alleged blasphemy, such a girl is not good for anything. She deserves to be called renegade and traitorous girl and apostate. She is the great Muslim girl who has sold everything precious in her life, including his love, for the cheap promises of a visa to a Western country and marriage to a lover. This apostate Muslim girl is supposed to be killed as his infallible Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, commanded all his Muslim followers to do with the apostates from Islam. After making such a forbidding decision, the sad lover walked slowly to a nearby dining hut and sat alone in a corner. He did not ask for food, water, or even a cup of tea. He had not eaten any food since the time he heard of his beloved Intisar's relapse and apostasy from Islam. Nothing entered his empty stomach except for the bitter, locally made liquor he drank in the brothel house of the ugly whore called Tumaya bin Karbuz. Chief Mr. Tia also entered the same hut and sat down in the opposite corner. He orders his spy Nasir to stay on the bus while the other Zak Jigger guards the entrance to the hut. Gang leader Tia has learned a hard lesson from his first mistake of the night escape of disobedient Muslim wife Intisar. Ever since her lover Sami entered the home of the prostitute Kaltumaya, the ringleader had been following the same strategy. A spy enters wherever Sami enters. Another guard is standing at the entrance. The third will watch the entrance from afar. In the power of the cheap, strong liquor and brothel, Nasser entered the prostitute's house and watched Sami. Digir guarded the door, and the group leader stood afar off watching the house. At the most, it was Digir who entered the compound and kept watching Sami through the window. Commander Tia was guarding the door of the mosque, and Nasser stood watching from afar. However, the sad and confused lover Sami did not see, nor did he notice, the movements of the spies. He got trapped inside his mind. His antics have so far annoyed Chief Tia and his two men. When he went to the house of the prostitute Kaltume, they saw that something bad had happened to his girlfriend, who was fleeing from the rule of the law, and her husband Hassan. When he entered the house of God, their initial suspicion disappeared, and they began to wonder about his strange behaviors. They jumped to the hasty conclusion that he has gone crazy like the madman case because he had lost his beloved girl Layla. Meanwhile, Sami sat silently on his chair and waited for the bus to leave. In that bus, he felt there is the presence of the apostate Muslim girl who had become the damning infidel Christian woman. When the bus leaves, his renegade and unfaithful girlfriend will be out of his life forever. He counted the half an hour break minute by minute. From his position, he looked at the Taisir bus as if it was carrying a time bomb. He counts the seconds and minutes until the bomb explodes and blows the apostate and infidel girl Intisar out of his life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Time is up. The heartbroken lover fell as if a supernova. had exploded inside his head and destroyed every dream and every hope in his life. All the passengers got on the bus except for Sammy. The assistant quickly looked over the seats and found that the three passengers were missing. He informed the driver to draw the attention of the missing passengers. When the horn sounded 5 times with no response, the tires of the bus started rolling towards the highway. An old man stood up and shouted loudly to the driver to stop his bus. Tell the assistant that a young man who seems to have lost someone very dear to him is still sitting there. He most likely did not hear the sound of the horn due to his deep sorrow. The assistant got very angry and then yelled at the driver to stop the bus and then jumped out and ran to Sammy. Sir, our dear passenger, we are leaving. Please hurry up. When the assistant realized that Sammy continued to cover his face with his hands and not turn around, he grabbed his hand and shook it violently. The sad lover opened his face and looked up. The assistant's face showed great astonishment when he saw Sammy's face. Remember, the sad passenger once traveled on his bus with a beautiful bride. He concluded that the beautiful bride may have died or been killed in an honor killing by her enraged father when he learned that she had married her lover without his knowledge and had become pregnant with an illegitimate child. A few drops of tears fell from the assistant's eyes. Gently and lovingly, he helped the sad groom to his feet and very gently guided him by the hand to the bus. Sammy followed the assistant, not seeing where he was leading him. When the two got in on the bus, the other two spies made their way inside the bus as well. As soon as the bus resumed its journey to the capital city, the sad lover remembered the hateful abomination committed by his apostate friend Intisar. There is now a huge chasm separating him from her. Unless he crosses that chasm, he cannot reach her. She is standing on the other shore with her arms outstretched. He tried to find a way to take him to her without being any exorbitant cost, but there was no such possibility. So the bewildered lover began to think deeper into the ocean of depression and despair. The idea of suicide crossed his troubled mind. He tried to get rid of it, but he couldn't. The idea grew every minute, bigger and deeper until it became higher like Mount Everest and deeper like Mariana Trench. It is the only solution to his current miserable situation. He accepted it and decided to put it into practice once he reached his final destination. Suicide is the only solution. Sammy knew and understood that he would not be able to live without Intisar, and at the same time, he would not be able to convert to Christianity. He is caught between two horns of a difficult dilemma. He is circle. His mind is trapped in a situation where the obvious solution His mind is trapped in a situation where the obvious solution to a single problem in a series of circumstances creates a new problem and increases the difficulty of an already existing unsolvable problem. The only possible escape from his heart wrenching and mind troubling dilemma is suicide. The remaining minutes for the bus to reach the capital city of Sudan passed for the sad Romeo, one after another, like several centuries. Finally, the bus reached its final stop in Khartoum city. The disheartened lover's confused mind felt the bus as a warplane that was hit by a missile, burned and landed in hell. The grieving lover also felt as if he had reached the gallows. All passengers disembarked except him. The assistant came and told him that they had reached the final destination. Now the idea of a suicidal death had taken over Sam's mind. From the top of his head to the soles of his feet, his body was poisoned with the idea of suicide. Then he got to his feet, built his body, and got off the bus. He began dragging his feet as if they were bound by heavy chains attached to the ground. The rival lover Hassan's three evil spies continued to follow the sad lover Sami from a distance. They became very surprised when he walked for a long time without taking a taxi or a local bus to the place he was going. After an hour and a half of walking, they saw him across the Freedom Bridge. After crossing the Great Bridge, the grieving lover encountered a crossroads. One road will take him to the biggest Christian church in Khartoum, where his beloved renegade girlfriend Intisar anxiously awaits his arrival. The second bus will lead him to the Blue Nile River, where he is determined to end his love and torment. It is the same river in which the brother of his late fiancée, brother Osman, committed suicide because he could not protect the honor and life of his late younger sister Firdos. Likewise, the grieving lover Sami decided to commit suicide like Osman because he could not marry his girlfriend Tisara and could not prevent her from apostasy from Islam and converting to Christianity. Sami stood for a while at the crossroads, hesitating as to where he should go next. Then he closed his eyes, turned in the fateful direction, and started walking. He walked for another 20 minutes and stopped again. Here he saw the tomb of the unknown soldier. Once again he came across another crossroads. Remembering the tomb of the unknown soldier, he preferred to die for his beloved country Sudan and his beautiful religion Islam, rather than abandon those noble principles and convert to another religion and go to a Christian Western country. So his feet carried him on the path of the Muslim martyrs. He walked for a few minutes and saw Khartoum General Hospital, where the innocent girl Firdos spent her last days. Sad memories of her unbearable suffering at the hands of his demon father are rekindled. He felt as guilty as his evil father for killing Firdos and her brother Osman. His anger and hatred for his wicked father was renewed. He wished in his heart that his bad father would be chained and brought naked from prison to the Blue Nile River. He will first forcefully drown his evil father inside the powerful current and then kill himself. Then the sad lover walked another half an hour and stopped at the road leading to the University of Khartoum. He recalled his engineering studies at the fond memories of his love for Intisar. His memory brought him the happy day he received her first love letter. How impatiently he waited for its arrival, and how happy he was when her love letter arrived. Once again, Sami hesitated between the two demands. His heart bleeds for his apostate girlfriend Intisar, and his conscience weeps for his beautiful religion Islam and for his beloved homeland Sudan. He may have chosen to return to his beloved apostate girlfriend Intisar and follow the religion of the infidels Christians, and she now follows. But suddenly the memory of Al-Qurashi, the first martyr of the October Revolution, directed his steps in the paths of the martyrs of his beloved homeland. In this way, the sad, confused lover of reason and consented singer of sad melody, love song, Sami Osman Taib continued to make his way through the crowded streets of the capital city until he reached the Blue Nile cinema. And here again, the memory of his renegade apostate girlfriend Cesar, his good friend Salah, and his late teenage sweet heart Firdos, the girlfriend of Salah, came to mind when they all walked hand in hand inside the movie theater. How beautiful and innocent were their lives in those happy days. At that time, they were not aware of the hostile world around them. They were then joyful, joyful and innocent, like little children, while they were enjoying those wonderful 3 days of their fairy tale honeymoon. They were unaware that their enemies were plotting their final separation and renewal of their lives. In their evil plot, they had predestined the apostasy from Islam and conversion of Intisar to the religion of the Christian infidels, the kidnapping, rape, and brutal murder of Firdaus, the sudden suicidal death of Osman, and his suicidal death is also today. The grieving lover knows he can do nothing now to change their destinies, to change those inevitable tragic endings. For all of them, he has to change the past. He knows that he could neither dream nor imagine fulfilling such an impossible request. Sami believes that not even God can change our past. Sometimes our past were chosen for us by those we hate. The sad lover quietly whispered these fateful words to himself and then turned it toward the blue Nile. He is just a few steps from the water. He has to cross the road and enter the muddy river bank. Soon the warm water will swallow him up like a hungry beast by degrees. First the feet, then the legs, waist, shoulders, neck, and finally the head. When the head is covered with water, his struggle and suffering will end. He cannot stop his suicidal death because he does not know how to swim. He cannot stop his suicidal death because he does not swim in all his life. He knows as soon as he enters the water that he is dead human being. He is like a stone that can drown in a small basin like the bathroom tap. Slowly the sad lover crossed the road and entered the riverbank. Stopped and looked behind him. He saw a few people standing on the other side of the road. Sami did not spend much time finding out if any of them were watching his movements or if there was a friend or a foe among them. He ignored them and went down to the water of the Blue Nile River. Meanwhile, the chief of spies, Mr. Tia, and his two Zaks, Jigir and Nisir, stood on the other side of the road and continued to watch Sami. They had already guessed his suicidal plan, but didn't even bother to save him. They concluded that his girlfriend, the disobedient runaway Muslim wife Intisar, either killed herself or was killed by someone. His antics from yesterday had kept them puzzled the entire time, but his last step confirmed their conclusion. When the raging water swallowed the body of the sad lover, the great spy Lucifer Tia Kuku, the son of the devil, took out his notebook from his pocket and wrote the time, date, and day when the sad lover Sami committed suicide. And the he had written the following statement. At the aforementioned time, date, and day, Sami Osman al Taib committed suicide in the presence of my two men, Jigir and Nisir. My spies and I concluded that he killed himself because he learned that his beloved girlfriend, Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jawir, had died and her remains were buried somewhere in this cosmopolitan city. She was killed either in a fatal car accident or was hit in the head, most likely by a bullet from Khartoum policemen. There is also the possibility of her being kidnapped and gang raped to death by some gangster in this Sudanese capital. We did not rule out the possibility that the poor beloved girl Intisar drowned it in the Nile River and committed suicide because she could not marry her rich lover Sami. Therefore, the crazy girl Layla preferred to kill herself for her mad lover case rather than have forceful sex in her pussy and gets raped every day by the dick of the rejected lover and competitor Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. If anyone is still in doubt about our wise conclusion, before gang leader Tia could complete his closing statement and add his signature, his two Zag spies, Eagle and Rat, draw his attention to two swimming men racing toward the drowning boy in the raging waters of the Blue Nile River. Chapter 62: Mental and Spiritual Changes in the Life of the Fugitive Muslim Girl. The runaway Muslim girl Intisar started to change from the first day she started living with the Coptic Christian family that took her in. In a short time, she changed in many ways, such as physically, mentally, spiritually, and morally. In her outward appearance, she changed her manner of dressing, the way she walked and spoke. She is very impressed with her new friend Suzanne. Therefore, the Muslim girl started wearing pants and shirts like the Coptic girl. She even wore skinny jeans and very short dresses. In size and height, the Christian girl and the Muslim girl are like twin sisters. The Coptic girl gave her new Arab friend half of her dresses. She took her to the beauty salon and changed her hairstyle. Intisar went with Suzanne to many places. The Muslim girl with her Christian friend went to the pool and put on a bikini. Suzanne also takes her to her new friend Intisar wherever she goes to tennis and basketball training. In addition to all that, she took her for gymnastics exercise in the gym. Intisar started learning to swim, play basketball, volleyball, and do physical exercises. In her city, Gadarif, and among her Muslim community and people, these physical sports practices are prohibited for females. The girl herself is taboo and kept in her house just like a totem animal, waiting for a man to come and devour her body through sham, halal Islamic marriage, and cruel rape. Accordingly, the Muslim girl Intisar felt as if she had remained since childhood inside concentration camp, a maximum security prison, or an iron cage, until faith released her and brought her to a loving Christian family. The differences between her previous life and her new life are the girl who traveled from Tora Bora in Afghanistan or Timbuktu in Mali or Mogadishu in Somalia and landed in London in the UK, New York in the US, or Paris in France. Therefore, Intisar completely transformed in a short period of a time into a completely different girl. She is like a caterpillar that emerged from its ugly cocoon and became a beautiful butterfly and began to fly on colorful wings among the flowers and roses. She shed her coffin-like Islamic clothes and put on beautiful Western dresses. That is why the Muslim neighbors of the Coptic family considers Suzanne's new friend to be an Ethiopian Christian girl or an Eritrean refugee. They know that a Muslim girl will never agree to dress like a boy as Intisar is now dressed. This is why they conclude that she was born and raised in a Ethiopian Christian family. Moreover, the new girl's regular visits to the Christian church confirm the conclusions of the Muslim neighbors. However, these external changes are nothing if we have to compare them with the internal changes that happened to the new Gulf Muslim girl. In a short period of time, the life of the so-called disobedient Muslim wife, a fugitive from justice, who now lives in the home of a Christian family, has changed. She completely changed her way of thinking. Living with this loving Coptic family promoted the runaway wife Intisar to abandon many of the religious values of her Islamic faith. Before that, these values were always considered good and just, but the way Muslim thinkers and scholars interpreted them is wrong. Then she tried to find out why scholars, translators, commentators, and thinkers misinterpreted these heavenly values and made them unfair and a source of hatred and mistreatment of women in inhumane and abhorrent ways. To reach the right conclusion, her mind struggled a lot. She had believed since childhood that these religious laws and values were revealed by God from heaven to earth through his infallible Prophet Muhammad and are therefore complete, good, and just. They are fixed, irreparable, and applicable at all times and places. No one had the right to change them. They are not open to any kind of reform or improvement because they are complete, comprehensive, and perfect. For this reason, the breast abuse and slander disobedient Muslim wife and the fugitive from the rule of obedience, Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Javid has always been accustomed to blaming thinkers, scholars, interpreters, Sharia judges, and religious leaders who are supposed to have misinterpreted these fair heavenly Islamic values. She believed that if properly interpreted, they would be fair and good for anyone who applied for them, and they will do good to any man or woman to whom the leaders have probably applied on them. However, her chance meeting and short stay with the Coptic Christian family exposed her to new and different religious laws and social values. She began to ponder the differences between the two sets of values, Islamic Sharia laws and Christian religious law values. Her bitter experience in her home city of Gadarif and the streets of Khartoum led her to compare the religious laws on which her Islamic values were built with the Christian religious laws and values of the Coptic family. The result of her simple comparison showed her that their Christian laws are better than her Islamic laws. At least in her case, she would not have gone through such abuse and suffering if it happened that she was born as a Christian girl and raised since childhood in the Christian religion. For the first time in her life, the Muslim girl who has strayed from Islamic justice begins to point fingers at her religious values, laws. She stopped blaming the interpreters and implementators of those anti-woman Islamic beliefs and misogynistic teachings. She concluded that these unfair religious laws were designed to offend women. So these evil laws cannot be inspired by a loving and just God. The same religious laws gave her half-brother Omar as a man guardian the right to sell her in what was called a permissible Islamic marriage, as if she was a slave owned by him who has a successor of her deceased father to marry her without her consent to the alleged lawful Muslim husband, the selfish man Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. They also allowed him to sell her late innocent sister Firdos to an old man of her grandfather's age. Because of those unjust and hostile Islamic rules and regulations that govern the daily life of Muslim women from their birth until their death, the judge of the Sharia court in Gadarif city issued a verdict of obedience to her 15-year-old minor sister. The same unjust laws caused Firdos to be kidnapped by 5 armed policemen. They forcibly took her to live with an old man whom she neither loved nor wished to marry. They also allowed the same judge of the Sharia court to pass the same law of slavery on her, euphemistically called the rule of obedience, which compelled her to flee her home and her city. They made her wander aimlessly for 3 days and 3 nights without money and shoes in the streets of Khartoum until finally God intervened, saved her life, and pulled her out of the deep waters of the Nile River. Then he carried her on eagle's wings and brought her to the Christian church, where she met a loving Coptic family. Before her fate took her to the Christian church, She fell victim to the wicked lady and Bim, called the compassionate Mother Nafisa, her first rapist, the fad Bulbul, the ugly, cruel wife, Mrs. Sanosni, and her second rapist, the lustful military major. Although she lived for more than 2 months in the Coptic family's home, neither Reverend Matt Hanna nor his son Naji attempted during the day or at night to rape her or look at her lustfully. They treated her as a daughter and sister, the way the good Christian man, Reverend Metta Hanna, welcomed and treated her on the day she came to his care as a beggar and outcast girl was the turning point in her miserable life. This promoted her to remember the unkind and inhuman way in which the Imam of the largest mosque in Khartoum city responded not to help her as a beggar without shelter, money, and shoes for mercy and help. He considered her a disobedient wife, a street girl, and dissolute woman. He even predicted that she would be a prostitute and sell her ties to many men. He called her the rebellious daughter and runaway wife. He told his followers not to have such a useless girl and disobedient wife running away from her husband and family. In the church, Pastor Hannah believed her story, kept her in his home, and treated her as a victim of an evil plot, an unjust religious and legal system. After that, the Muslim girl Intisar started to compare herself to the Christian girl. She found Suzanne has a lot of freedom compared to her. She has a lover and will marry him sooner or later. No one can marry her without her consent to any other man. Her marriage contract is not valid unless she signs it with her own hands and with her future husband. No Protestant pastor, Orthodox priest, or Catholic priest in the entire world can marry a Christian girl to a man without her knowledge, consent, presence, and signature. Neither Susan's father, Reverend Matta Hanna, nor her brother Naji can contract her marriage to another man without her knowledge and consent. If anything like this happened to her, the fake Christian marriage contract would remain void and therefore could not be enforced against her by any judge or any law enforcement officer. More serious than that, Christian or secular law would severely punish her father or brother for having committed such a heinous crime against his daughter or his sister. Therefore, the Muslim girl Intisar understood that if she was a Christian, the Muslim Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk and her evil brother Omar would not have dared to contract her marriage without her knowledge, consent, present, and signature. Likewise, the same horrific crime would not have been committed against her late sister Firdos if she had been a Christian girl. After an honest and sincere comparison between her Islamic religious laws and Christian religious values regarding women in both religions, the Muslim girl reached the inevitable conclusion that Sharia laws are man made, while God revealed Christian values. From that day on, Intisar stopped completely blaming the interpreters, translators, scholars, judges, and religious leaders of those unjust and misogynistic laws and those other relatives who applied them to their daughters or to whom they were applied. She saw them all as victims like herself, yet she knew perfectly well that none of them would accept her conclusion if they knew where she came from or how she reached those results. They would assume that she was brainwashed and deceived by those infidel Christians with whom she resides. When the Muslim girl Intisar reached this inevitable result, her heart was filled with fear, dread, panic, and terror. The accumulated religious knowledge of her Islamic faith did not allow her to consider converting to Christianity. She knows that the biggest abomination that a Muslim man or a Muslima woman can do is apostasy from Islam and embracing the Christian religion. This apostate Muslim person is said about him, God forbid, to have been converted to the distorted religion of Nasraniya or Christianity in the Islamic community. Intisar received her intensive Islamic religious education at home and at school and through all social and religious media such as television, radio, and the internet. She always heard the voice of the Imam on the pulpit through the loud speakers in the mosque near her home that only Muslims will enter heaven and that followers of all religions, the other, they will all end up without exception in hell and be there and burned by an inquenchable fire forever. Fire fueled by people and stones. She was born and raised in an Islamic worldly environment that made her believe in a firm faith that cannot be shaken, that Christians are lost people and misguided, and the Jews are accursed by Allah. Hindus, Buddhists, Confucians, Sikhs, followers of Baha'i faith, atheists, communists, feminists, and people of all other religions and sects are polytheists, infidels, people cursed by God and his angels and doomed to annihilation, and their final eternal abode is also in hell. Thus, she used to believe that all non-Muslims are infidels and enemies of God and his beloved Prophet Muhammad, and they are on their way to the fire of hell, where they will abide forever and ever. And whenever their skins are burned, God replaces them with other skins and burn them for eternity. She also heard many times the Imam said, may God Allah curse the Christian and Jewish and defeat them and make their women and children put to Muslims. He called them infidels and brothers of monkeys and pigs. After the Muslim girl reached her new conclusion, she became very afraid of the hateful idea of apostasy from the true and tolerant Islamic religion and converting to the false, distorted, and corrupt Christian religion and becoming a cursed apostate woman and a Christian infidel on her way to hell. In the beginning, the fleeing Muslim girl Intisar did not want to be an apostate from Islam and die as an impure, cursed, infidel Christian girl and go to hell. This is her greatest evil. She considered it a final separation from her Muslim lover and fiancé Sami and her Muslim family, friends, and neighbors. She tried to push the idea of transforming into a different girl to another religion out of her mind, but her mind had already converted and she became another girl. Yet her heart still clung to her past life. She's in a trouble again. She must either accept the conversion of her mind or live with a transformed mind and heart filled with fear of death and going to hell. She cannot be true to herself anymore. Intisar felt like two people living in one body. These two persons are like two giants grappling inside her body and pulling her in opposite directions. Each giant strives to defeat his opponent and expel him from her body. She also felt that a new intruder had entered her body, possessed her heart and mind, and tried to force her to do something she hated. As a result, Intisar became anxious and spent many nights trying to find a compromise. When the entire Coptic family went to sleep, she sat on her bed and became deeply immersed in these two opposing thoughts. She tries to find a middle ground between the two opposing religions, but she finds no solution. In her bewilderment, she thought of becoming a Muslim and a Christian girl at the same time, But she understood that there is no such a person in the whole world. It is just like someone trying to be a follower of Satan and God at the same time. These two religions are like two parallel lines that will never meet. She has to choose one of them, but in no uncertain terms, she cannot be in both buses. Intisar's fear increased as she began to think about her current problem. She knows legally or religiously that she is considered the wife of Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. Islamic laws has given him this right. The Sharia court has authorized law enforcement police officers to arrest her and take her to his home, which is called Disobedient house. Accordingly, her lover and fiancé Sami can never be her legal husband as long as her so-called legal husband Hassan is alive, and he and his spies are looking for her. Even if she and Sami went to a far place in Sudan and deceived the imam of that city and got married and live as husband and wife, their marital relationship would continue as long as they were not discovered. What will happen if the truth about their illegal marriage come out? According to Islamic law, Sami will receive 100 lashes because he illegally cohabited in a sexual relationship with a married girl. She will be stoned to death because she committed adultery with another man and is legally married to Hassan. Accordingly, Intisar understood that their insoluble problem was caused by Islam itself. As such, there is no solution available to their insolvable problem in Islam. The only alternative available to solve their intractable problem is that she and her lover must convert to Christianity. If they both become Christian, their insolvable problem will be automatically resolved. Her alleged halal Islamic marriage to Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali will be annulled and invalidated, and she can marry the lover she loves to marry. The Sharia court ruling, euphemistically called the verdict of obedience, would have no control over her life. However, the so-called disobedient runaway wife became frightened when she thought of converting to another religion and becoming an apostate and infidel girl. Intisar was able to live with a changed heart and mind and a troubled conscience for a period of time in the Christian home. But one day she shared her thoughts with her new Coptic Christian friend. Susanna assured her that none of these problems would happen to her if she listened to her conscience. First of all, she will no longer submit to the religious canons of her former religion, Islam. Her marriage to Hassan will be automatically annulled and invalidated. She will be free to marry whoever she wants to marry. Secondly, she can travel to and live in a secular foreign Western country without fear of being killed as an apostate or adulterous wife. If her lover and fiancé Sami accept her new faith, both friends can marry as Christians and immigrate to a foreign country. Their marriage will be conducted by a Christian priest. When Suzanne encouraged Intisar, her fears vanished and she embraced Christianity in heart and mind. Although she has sincerely converted to Christianity, she still faces another serious problem. She needs to be baptized with water in her new faith. Otherwise, she will not be able to religiously marry as a Christian. However, Sudanese law does not allow any Christian priest or a pastor in her Muslim country to baptize an apostate Muslim girl who has converted from Islam to Christianity. If he did, the law would punish him severely, either with long imprisonment or by hanging to death. To avoid such a harsh punishment, Reverend Matta Hanna explained to the apostate Muslim girl Intisar, who had recently converted to Christianity, the seriousness of the matter and therefore apologized. Miraculously, this difficult problem was solved. Suzanne informed her Intisar that a Lebanese priest was coming to visit Sudan. He will only be in their chair for one day. He will arrive in Khartoum city in the morning and return to Beirut city at night on the same day. Then she told her that her father, Pastor Matta, could ask the Lebanese priest to baptize her as a Christian girl. Although she had voluntarily and sincerely converted from Islam to Christianity, Intisar found herself facing another serious problem. This time her problem is related to her Muslim boyfriend, Sami. What would his reaction be to her apostasy? Will he take it easy and regard it as an educated and enlightened university graduate with the right to his girlfriend to follow any religion she wishes to follow? Or does he consider her an apostate and infidel, hate her, and end his love affair with her? Will he easily surrender to her request, accept her new faith, become an apostate Muslim and Christian boy like her, then marry her as a Christian fiancé and his Christian fiancée, or a groom and his bride, and then travel with her outside the country? Intisar knows that her conversion is real because it was based on her bitter experience and result from a real and sincere conviction. Her life with the loving Christian family exposed her to new religious laws and values, and she compares them to her own. She has not been brainwashed by anyone nor seduced by worldly promises such as money or a visa to a Western country. After comparing the two sets of religious laws and values, Intisar realized that she does not need a Christian religious teacher or a pastor or a priest of a church to teach her which religious laws and values are good and which are bad, and which have been revealed by God Almighty, and which are the laws that inspire and came from the devil Satan. Even an uneducated and ignorant girl who has never been to school can see the difference between the two and choose right from wrong. However, she knows and understands that if her Muslim lover Sami should accept her newfound Christian fountain of faith and become an apostate like her, it would be only for her sake. He is not as fortunate as she, whose faith made her live among good and righteous Christians, who opened her eyes to the truths of the true religion through the examples of their deeds and words. Despite this problem, the apostate Muslim girl Intisar is willing to accept her lover Sami's conversion to Christianity, even if it is just a lips conversion. However, Intisar faces a more serious problem and has to share it with her Coptic friend Suzanne. She understood that neither her lover nor she could continue to live in Sudan after their apostasy from Islam, their secret conversion to Christianity, and their secret Christian marital union. Traveling to a Western country would be a long process and could take more than a year. Meanwhile, if they are discovered, they will be considered apostates and put to death. Moreover, their application to immigrate to a Western country may be rejected. In this case, they have to live underground and they cannot have children together as husband and wife because their Christian marriage would be illegal in a Muslim country like Sudan and their children pastors. If their secret Christian marital relationship was discovered and their apostasy became public knowledge, they'd be punished in the most horrific manner under the law of apostasy in Islamic law. They will be punished as apostates and adulterers. As a result, the apostate Muslim girl turned Christian discussed the dangerous new problem with her Coptic friend. The clever Christian girl Suzanne suggested that Sam and Intisar must pretend to be Eritreans who fled their country and crossed the border on foot from Ethiopia into Sudan because of the civil war between Eritrean rebels and the Ethiopian army. After that, They must apply for refugee status at the Nations Refugee Office in Khartoum City. When they have their refugee documents, they can apply for resettlement in a Western country such as Canada, Australia, or the USA. When they safely reach one of these secular countries, flowing with milk, honey, and money, the two socially and religiously persecuted lovers can settle there and live happily ever after. Those exciting ideas and promising plans are fine on paper, but applying them in real life in a strict Islamic society like Sudan is a different question entirely. All those promising plans devised by the smart Christian girl Susan were absorbed and accepted by the apostate Muslim girl Intisar. Then she phoned her Muslim lover Sami and ordered him to come to her and meet her in the biggest Christian church in Khartoum city, which is located opposite to the largest mosque in Sudan. He has to give up everything for her love, including his mother, his brothers and sisters, his religion, Islam, his country, Sudan, and even the wedding of his best friend, Salah Hamuna. And he comes to her as soon as possible on the day of tomorrow at noon. She makes it clear to him that she has become a Christian girl and wants him to convert to Christianity as well. Only then can their insolvable problem be resolved and they can marry as Christian lovers. To make him take her decision seriously, the naughty apostate girlfriend threatened her handsome Muslim lover that if he did not come tomorrow, Khartoum City, and become a Christian like her, their love would end and they would be separated forever. Intisar was not serious about her threats, but she knows that Sami loves her and almost worships her. So she thought that he would do whatever she asks of him because of his deep love for her. She knows that even if she asks him to kill his evil father, Osman al-Tayyib, or her alleged lawful husband, Hassan Hajub al-Hilali, he would do so because of his unwavering love for her. For her sake, his despicable father was sent to prison and separated from his family, including his mother and brothers. Can he also leave his Islamic religion and accept the Christian religion because of her love? Her answer to her difficult question, she thought would be, is yes, he can do that for her too. Likewise, she knows that she lost her sister Firdos and her brother Osman and was separated from her mother Sarah and was expelled from her city, Gadarif, and wandered in the streets of Khartoum without shelter, money, or shoes, and faced two brutal rape attempts, and almost turned into a prostitute and a slave, and tried to commit suicide in the Nile River, and eventually became an apostate Muslim and Christian fidel because of her sincere love for him. With such with such great expectations in her heart, full of great hope, the beloved apostate Muslim wife, who became an infidel Christian girl, came to the church waiting for her handsome Muslim lover Sami to come to her and for both of them to fulfill the dream of their lives and live happily ever after. Chapter 63. His love for her is greater than the love of Qais for Layla. Coincidentally, on the same day that her sad lover Sami tried to end his life, his beloved Intisar came to the church and eagerly awaited his arrival. After being rescued by the two men, the heartbroken lover realized that it was God who sent those two swimmers and saved his life. This realization gave him a lot of peace of mind. The fiancé, Sami, now felt the same feelings as his fiancée, Intisar, felt when she heard the ringing of the bells of the Christian church near the bank of the Nile River, where she also tried to end her miserable life. Suddenly his dark and negative suicidal thoughts and fears disappear, and in their place, clarity of mind and courage of heart fills his inner being and cleanses his troubled consciousness. As a result of this divine revelation and wonderful realization, he decided to go to his beloved fiancée Intisar and fulfill her wish. When Sami was brought safely to the bank of the Blue Nile River by two lifeguards, he felt very weak and exhausted. His aimless wanderings through the streets of his city and the time he spent in the prostitute's house, the house of God, and the inside the past during his long trek and walk in Khartoum city sapped him of any strength and energy in his body. Moreover, the traces of the two bitter experiences he had in the tavern of the prostitute Kaltuma and in the holy house of God, where 13 bearded Muslim terrorists destroyed his body and almost killed him in the mosque, were gone. In addition to all that, his mouth hadn't tasted food for the past 24 hours. When two rescuers brought him to the bank, he at first could not stand on his feet. They tried to find out why he drowned in the water of the river. They suspected that he has attempted suicide, and so they are worried that he might attempt to kill himself again. That is why they tried to keep him until they could hand him over to the police. Sam strongly denied their suspicions. He told them he was trying to learn how to swim. The rescuers believed his story and let him go. The rescued lover came out of the water with a different attitude toward his beloved's impossible demand. He decided to go to the church and meet her there and fulfill her demand. While his dress was still wet, he somehow managed to get to his feet and drag his body to the other side of River Street. Then he stopped a taxi and asked the driver to take him to the largest mosque in Khartoum city, which is located in front of the biggest mosque in Sudan. The driver responded to his request and within 20 minutes drove him to his final destination. It is the same mosque that his runaway girlfriend Intisar has come twice in the past seeking refuge and help, but the guard kicked her out and the imam cursed her, ridiculed her, injured her face, and instigated his followers against her and told them not to help her. In front of the gate of the largest house of God in the city, Sam stopped an old sheikh who was about to enter the boat. Excuse me, uncle, can you point me to the largest Christian church in the capital city? The old man looked at Sam with an angry face and entered the biggest mosque in Sudan without saying a word. The devout Muslim old man felt as if Sami, an impure Christian infidel, had asked him to direct him to a tavern or a store for selling liquor or a brothel for prostitutes or a place for reading books and dogs. The taxi driver heard the lover's request, so he put his head out of the window and told him in a loud voice, "Young man, if you want to go to the biggest Coptic Christian church in Sudan, it is on the opposite side direction. Just cross this road and you will see a big cross on the top of an old building. I am a Christian man too, oh my brother in Christ." Sami thanked the Christian taxi driver and went to the big church. He entered the Christian church in the same miserable manner as his girlfriend had come 2 months earlier. She was barefoot, dragged, rejected, kicked out, homeless, ostracized, runaway, wanted by the police and her alleged husband's spies. Today, though her boyfriend's outward appearance looks worse than his beloved girlfriend's miserable condition when she dragged her weary body barefoot into the church prayer sanctuary and sat on the last pew. His clothes are filthy and he smells a crate of liquor, sweat, filthy trash container, and muddy water on the riverbank of the Blue Nile. Thousands of flies were hovering around him and sitting on his filthy clothes and his head, as if his body was the carcass of a scabious animal full of many wounds and rotting bus. He is like a miserable Muslim beggar who mistook the chair for the mosque. He is also like a pig that has spent a long time sleeping in the gutter before going out to find something to eat. No one will believe him if he says that he is the son of the richest business tycoon in the city of Gaddafi, even if he swears a billion times under the official oath to place his right hand on his Holy Quran or presents his identity card. Worst of all, no one will think that this is the boyfriend of the most beautiful girl in the chair. In a short time, Intisar blossomed and began to shine like a bright and shining sun, surrounded by planets among other Christian girls. Every Christian boy who saw her loved her and enjoyed talking to her. Some of them even tried to win her heart, but her friend Suzanne told them that she was in love with a Muslim boy and that she was engaged to her lover. The out the outcast, runaway, and homeless Muslim girl Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir became in a short period of time the beauty queen in that Christian church, which she entered as a beggar girl when she was abused and rejected by everyone. On that very historical day, the three Zaks, Tia, Nasser, and Jigir, are about to walk after the sad lover Sami, but they suddenly realize that it is a Christian church, that their Islamic faith would not allow them to go to the place of worship of infidel Christians. The light cross above the ancient building showed them that it was the place of worship for Christians. They stood for a while to see if the heartbroken lover Sami had mistaken the chair for the mosque. When they waited a long time and he hadn't come out, Mr. Tia took out his notebook again from his pocket and wrote the following report. To the best of my knowledge, I am Tia Kuku, the son of the devil. I testify that Sami Osman al-Tayyib has become mentally ill. His awkward and confusing antics for 24 hours showed that he had become madly in love like case with Layla. The following reasons promoted me to come to such a conclusion. First, his bizarre behavior began by walking aimlessly through the streets of Gaddafi city for 4 hours. During his long walk, he pulled his hair several times, scratched his cheeks, and beat violently on his chest, weeping bitterly. We followed him everywhere he went. Then he took us to a liquor house owned by a well-known prostitute, Kaltumaya Karbuz, who is the mother of the imprisoned gang leader Abu Shakhura Del Kalib. She's a black slave, a prostitute, a liquor saleswoman, and her big pussy can fuck a cock of a donkey or a dick of a horse. We all know her and drank alcohol and Marisa in her house and had sex with her several times. When he was there, Sami started drinking liquor like any person drinks water. While he was sipping on the bitter liquor, he started crying loudly and lamenting the loss of someone. Then another angry drunkard scolded and kicked him for his loud shouting and disturbing the drunks. Instead of taking revenge for the wrong he had done to him, Sami became friends with his attacker. Then the drunk brought his bottle, his glass, his snack, bag of cigarettes, a bongo, and a sniffer up and joined him. After talking and drinking with this dangerous criminal man for a long time, Sammy spent the night in the arms of the world's ugliest whore. In the early morning of the next day, he ran away from the house of the prostitute Kaltumaya as if he was being chased by a bristly lioness. Then he heads straight from the hooker's house to the house of God. After the morning prayer, he sat at the feet of the Imam of the Blessed Mosque and listened to his sermon. We had no idea what the virtuous Imam preached. After talking with the eminent Imam of the mosque and other faithful men, Sami was beaten by the congregation and their spiritual leader. 5 bearded men had removed his unconscious body from the prayer hall and dumped it into a rubbish container. We also had no idea why the men of Allah and their holy Imam were angry with him and beat him mercilessly and threw his unconscious body into the misters in front of their mosque. Fortunately, Sami's half-dead body was not devoured by some stray dogs who were full of rabies. The reason is almost likely that all the tired and hungry dogs were asleep at that early hour of the new morning. When he regained his consciousness, the heartbroken boy emerged from the filthy garbage container as if he were a zombie or a pastor emerging from his grave or an ownerless stray dog emerged from the stinking sewage. Then he hailed a taxi and headed to Al Tarsir bus station. He bought a ticket, climbed up with great difficulty, traveled to Khartoum, and we traveled with him on the same bus. During the long journey, he did many crazy things that made us doubt his mental strength. From the Al Suga Shabi market bus station, Sami dragged his sick body and walked for more than 3 hours. We also followed him on foot until he reached the riverbank near the Blue Nile cinema. There he attempted suicide but was saved by two righteous men. They pulled him out of the water like a dead corpse. He rose again like a zombie, although we suspected that he was acting mad in order to deceive us and get rid of us. His last move made us conclude without a shadow of a doubt that he had gone mad in his love for Intisar, like Case in his love with Layla. From the riverbank, he took a taxi and went to the largest mosque in Sudan. This time, instead of entering the house of God, the Muslim boy entered the house of Satan. In other words, he entered the church of Christian infidels to pray. After that strange step and abnormal behavior, we decided to separate from him and return to our city. We have concluded that there is no point in following a madman. After writing his report, the chief of spies himself took a move that was even more crazy than that of the insane lover case. Mr. Tia had not prayed all his life or even knew how to pray. But on that day, he was touched by a rare tenderness and compassion and asked his two spies, Nasser and Jigir, to accompany him to the Grand Mosque. None of the three Muslim Zaks knew how to perform ablution, so they walked into the Grand Mosque prayer hall and prayed while impure and unholy. After performing their first and perhaps the last prayer of their lives, the three spies asked God to forgive them for spying on a mad lover. However, when the so-called mad lover case, who had become mad for his love for the beautiful Layla, entered the Christian place of worship, the first impression he had was that he had come to a wedding party. He saw the church decorated with many beautiful flowers, lights of different colors, and hundreds of balloons. Christians are well dressed, healthy, and obscenely wealthy. From infant to very old, they are there. There is a feeling of great joy. The second impression of Sami is that it is one of the Christian holidays. But then remember that the day does not coincide with any of their festivals, such as Jesus' birthday, which they call Christmas, Good Friday, or the Sunday of resurrection of Christ's resurrection from the dead, which they call Easter. He concluded that it is a wedding for a newly married couple. Another realization made Sam suspect that he had come to a place of worship, as he had seen many pretty teenage girls wearing short dresses and talking freely with boys. He can see their faces, shoulders, hair, big buttocks, as well as their thighs, hips, and half of their breasts clearly visible. So the Muslim lover thinks he came to the wrong place. The young Sami, because he's a Muslim man, had never entered a church before. And yet, from what he heard people talking about a church, he formed an idea of what was supposed to be inside. He has an image in his mind of a place where unbelieving Christians come every Sunday morning with dark and sad faces and sit quietly. After sitting silently for some time, an old man in a black robe with a big beard and holding a red book known as the Injil of Jesus Christ, the Son of the Virgin Mary, will address him. When it is over, everyone will leave in silence without speaking to anyone, as if they came out of the place of mourning, carrying their books like dead bodies and walking in funeral procession. But what Kais, the mad lover, saw today in the Coptic church did not agree with this preconceived wrong notion of the Christian church, which increased his doubts. Sam stood for a few minutes, reluctant to move forward or back. Then he saw a beautiful girl approaching him, smiling, and said in a sweet voice, "Sir, may I help you? Is this a Christian church?" "Yes, it is." "Are you looking for someone?" "Yes, I am looking for a girl named Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. She is my fiancée." This name sounds like a Muslim girl's name to me. That is what she is supposed to be. Do you know any of her Christian friends? Not at all. All I know is that she lives with a Coptic family, but I don't know anything about these Christians. In that case, let me speak to the priest about your girlfriend. Then the British Christian girl went and returned shortly after, while being followed by an elderly man. When they reached Sami, the man spoke to him, smiling happily. "Are you looking for the girl Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir?" asked the man. "Yes, sir." "You must be her fiancé, Sami." "You are right, sir. I am Pastor Matta Hanna. Intisar lives in my house. My daughter Suzanne and Intisar became very close friends. I'm glad to know that she lives in your house, sir. Please follow me." Sami followed the old man in silence. As he was walking behind him, he was surprised to see a Christian priest in plain clothes. He also has a different picture of a church priest, but he bushes off his surprise. They walked for a while until they reached a place that looked like a swimming pool. Qais al-Majnoon was shocked when he saw his beloved Layla standing in the middle of the pool, surrounded by two women and another old man. Sami at first thought she was in a swimming lesson. He saw the two women holding his girlfriend's waist and shoulder, and the old man placing his right hand on her head. Then the old man shouted some words and pushed her under the water. Sami's initial impression is that the infidels are drowning her in the water. He remembered his terrifying experiences, his suicidal attempt in the water of the Blue Nile River. So the madman Qais is about to make his way and jump into the water and save his beloved fiancée Layla from these infidels before they kill her. The crazy lover forget that he did not know how to swim, and therefore he might drown himself. Before he could put his thought into action, he saw the two women quickly take Intisar's shoulders and get out of the water, hugging her tightly. The man who shouted a few words hugged her before pushing her under the water and then shook her hand. Then the two women pulled the beautiful Layla out of the pool while her dress was pouring water like broken tap. Of course, she looks very hot and even more beautiful with her wet clothes sticking to her sexy body. Brice Mata then approached Sam's right ear and informed him in a whisper that his fiancée Intisar had been baptized with water in her new Christian faith. She completed a water baptism in her conversion to Christianity. She is now a reborn Christian girl. But the Muslim boy Sami understood none of the Christian terms the priest had said about his apostate Muslim girlfriend Intisar. However, as the beautiful Christian baptized girl Layla and the two Coptic women emerged from the basin, the priest Matta and the handsome Muslim Qais entered the pool from the opposite direction. It so happened that the beautiful and sexy girl Intisar went to change her wet dress without seeing her handsome lover Sami. Then the same Sudanese pastor asked the Lebanese priest to come and baptize the Muslim boy Sami as well, because he is the fiancé of the girl he just baptized. Priest Gassan asked him, "What your name is, my son?" "My name is Sami Asmar Taib." "Do you understand what water baptism is?" "No, sir, but it is a necessary religious ritual to make a person a Christian." "Well, this is the duty of Reverend Matta Hannah to explain it to you later after I baptize you." Then Brisk Hassan placed his right hand on Sami's head, and Pastor Matta stood behind him. "I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit," the Lebanese priest shouted. Then Sami's body was submerged underwater, and the Sudanese pastor Matta Hanna quickly pulled him out. When the water baptized lover resurfaces, the first person he sees is his beloved Christian girlfriend who had been baptized a few minutes before him. The beloved Intisar did not wait for her lover Sami to come out and then hug him, but she jumped into the water and wet her dress again. That is not all, but she also wet her sweet lips by kissing her handsome lover in front of everyone on the lips. Into her sexy body. Brice Matta then approached Sam's right ear and informed him in a whisper that his fiancée Intisar had been baptized with water in her new Christian faith. She completed a water baptism in her conversion to Christianity. She is now a reborn Christian girl. But the Muslim boy Sami understood none of the Christian terms the priest had said about his apostate Muslim girlfriend Intisar. However, as the beautiful Christian baptized girl Layla and the two Coptic women emerged from the basin, the priest Matta and the handsome Muslim Qais entered the pool from the opposite direction. It so happened that the beautiful and sexy girl Intisar went to change her wet dress without seeing her handsome lover Sami. Then the same Sudanese pastor asked the Lebanese priest to come and baptize the Muslim boy Sami as well, because he is the fiancé of the girl he just baptized. Brisk Gassan asked him, "What your name is, my son?" "My name is Sami Asmar Taib." "Do you understand what water baptism is?" "No, sir, but it is a necessary religious ritual to make a person a Christian." "Well, This is the duty of Reverend Matta Hannah to explain it to you later after I baptize you. Then Brisk Hassan placed his right hand on Sammy's head, and Pastor Matta stood behind him. I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Lebanese priest shouted. Then Sammy's body was submerged underwater, and the Sudanese pastor Matta Hanna quickly pulled him out. When the water baptism when the water baptized lover resurfaces, the first person he sees is his beloved Christian girlfriend who had been baptized a few minutes before him. The beloved Intisar did not wait for her lover Sami to come out and then hug him, but she jumped into the water and wet her dress again. That is not all, but she also wet her sweet lips by kissing her handsome lover in front of everyone on the lips. Before a secret Christian marriage, at 9:30 in the evening of that wonderful day of the reunion of the persecuted lovers, the beloved Intisar, her beloved Sami, and the Coptic girlfriend Suzanne, and her Christian boyfriend Andre left the biggest church and headed for their night tower. Then the four lovers crossed the road and got into Suzanne's car. The beautiful Layla and her handsome lover Kais took the back seats, while the Coptic sweetheart and her good-looking Christian lover took the front. That day, Suzanne was driving her new car. The two passionate lovers, Intisar and Sami, did not stop looking into each other's eyes. They miss each other very much. They are holding hands. They hugged and kissed several times, but felt that something was missing. They're anxiously awaiting the car's arrival at the restaurant. Whenever his beautiful sweetheart speaks, her handsome friend's ears can not only hear her musical voice, but his tongue can taste its sweetness, like honey dripping from her sweet lips. He could see with his eyes and smell with his nose her words falling from her small mouth like colored flowers and roses. Sami had never seen his beloved Intisar wearing such a beautiful Western dress before. She looks a million times prettier in Suzanne's Western Christian t-shirt and trouser than when he saw her in the Islamic abaya and hijab for the last time in the Sharia court at Gadar City before he was kicked out of the courtroom and sent straight to prison and jailed for a month. He also looks very happy and cheerful. After being baptized with water in his new Christian faith, he tore his filthy rags, and Reverend Hannah provided him with beautiful clothes from his son Najib. And the son of the richest man in Gadar city is just as beggar as his poor friend Intisar needed Suzanne's dress when she threw out her dirty rags 2 months ago. Fortunately, Naji is also like Sami in height and gears. So the clothes of the Coptic boy fit Qais al-Majnun as if they were designed for him. The mad lover longs to kiss his lovely Layla and hold her in his arms. He felt that also wouldn't be enough for him. He wants to go beyond her sweet lips and enjoy her sexy body for the first time. His heart began to beat faster when he remembered that they were not too far from the peak of sexual happiness. They have been waiting for a long time for their wedding, and finally their special day has arrived. They have fought many battles and defeated their opponents. Finally, the final decisive battle is over. They dropped the mother of all bombs and destroyed all their enemies. Their enemies have suffered a crushing defeat. One by one, They were dragged away and thrown behind bars as they should have been there a long time ago. The handsome lover Sami began to imagine his beautiful bride Intisar, beautifully decorated in her wedding gown. She's sitting next to him. His hand is holding her hand. She smiles at him. They're surrounded by happy, good Christians. Before his imaginations takes him beyond the wedding ceremony to their first wedding night in a hotel room, the car arrives at Hamada's floating restaurant. The four friends disembarked and separated themselves into two groups. Each group sat in one corner of the wonderful restaurant. The crazy lover Kais and his beautiful lover Layla are finally left alone. Then the beloved Sami put his hands around the waist of his beloved Intisar and pulled her close to him. His sexy girlfriend stood up and came around the table and sat on his lap. He could feel the softness of her delicate and sexy body. Then he hugged her until he felt her warmth. He put his right hand around her waist. His left hand feels her soft cheeks and plump lips. She began to swing her body in his lap. Sam started kissing her neck. He tried to kiss her back, but he found that her dress was a hindrance to him. He unbuttoned and pulled the zipper on her dress from the top of her neck until it reached just below the waist. He kissed her on the bare part of her back, but now that doesn't satisfy him. Then he put his hand on her shoulders and took off her dress until it reached her waist. Her dress fell at her belly button and reached her lower buttocks. She was half naked from back and the front. Then undo her pink para. Sam's heart started beating like a drum inside his chest. He saw her bare big boobs, which looked like two pomegranates, and began to caress them. It was the first time that her lover's hands touched her bare breasts. So Intisar started making love sound like a virgin touched it for the first time. His lips began to kiss her bare shoulders, then moved to her neck, cheeks, and mouth. Keep kissing her sweet lips and enjoying her sexy body. Intisar felt the pleasure of the touch of her lover's hands. She wants him and needs him to touch her everywhere. She was sexually aroused to the limit and reached an uncontrollable height. Their happiness might have ended with making love in a public place if the restaurant management had allowed them to do so. The sexy, beautiful Layla might not have stopped her crazy lover Kais if he decided to have sex with her on the big table and enjoy her virgin pussy for the first time by inserting his dick on it. It was the beautiful Coptic girl and her handsome boyfriend, not the lovely waitress in the floating restaurant, who came and separated the happy lovers' lips from each other. Suzanne whispered in Tisar's ear and told her the restaurant would be closing in a matter of minutes, so it was time to go home. Then the four lovers traveled in the same beautiful car to the home of the Coptic family. The next day, the sun rose with a special promise for the handsome fiancé Sami and his beautiful fiancée Intisar. Beloved Layla woke up very early that day. She woke up from her sleep in front of her lover, Kais. She knows when the sun will rise again the next day, everyone will call her the Christian bride and wife of Sami. And when she opens her eyes again, she will see her bridegroom and her Christian husband sleeping beside her. Kais will open his eyes and see Layla's beautiful eyes. He will hug her, he will kiss her, he will push his masculine body against her sexy feminine body. Then his long legs will separate her sexy legs apart, and the two lovers will engage in a wonderful lovemaking for the first time. She will be like a sweet apple to him. He will remove the cover and enjoy its sweetness. And as she fancied what would happen between them, the next morning Intisar took the pillow and began to hug and kiss it. Thus began the day when the fiancé would marry his fiancée. Sami woke up an hour later than Intisar. He spent the night sleeping in the room of the Coptic son Naji while his girlfriend, as she does every night, slept in the room of her friend Suzanne. She is very happy and excited. He is very happy and excited. He knows that today is the day he waited and fought for so long. His life's dream will come true today. His beloved Intisar will be his life partner forever. She was created for him, and he was created for her. They were made by God for each other. She is the only girl who will match and complete him emotionally, physically, intellectually, sexually, and spiritually. Then he remembers their special night as bride and groom when they are together in one hotel room. He begins to imagine her standing in front of him in her wedding dress. He will take her in his arms and look at her pretty face. Then he will carry her inside the hotel room. He will kiss her cheeks and lips. He'll put her on the big bed. Then he gradually begins to reveal the beauty of her inner charm. He started from the shoulders until he reached the feet. He will enjoy her inner charm for the first time. As a husband and wife united in a sacred Christian bond, they will have sex together and for the first time and thus become one soul and one body. They will be united forever and live happily ever after. On that special day, Suzanne took Intisar to the beauty salon. Sammy was told to stay home and go with Pastor Matta Hanna directly to the church. It was decided to hold their Christian marriage in strict secrecy. Only Pastor Matta, his wife Sarah, son Naji, daughter Suzanne, and her boyfriend Andre are invited to attend the secret Christian wedding. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the fiancé Sammy and Reverend Matta left the house and headed to the church. It is a 40-minute drive away. As they travel in silence, the lover thinks about his special day. He couldn't believe he was going to his wedding. He was not wearing a new dress. He still wears the same shirt and trousers that Reverend Matta gave him. Then he remembered the day his older brother Mustafa got married. More than 50 cars were following his brother's beautiful new Mercedes car. Many women were singing beautiful songs. The children were screaming happily. Boys and girls were clapping their hands. The beautiful young women were playing the drums and tambourines while singing the songs of Al Adil wa Zain, which are the wedding sweet songs in Sudan. On the day of the marriage ceremony, every woman and girl met with her lips and tongue Ololosha's songs of joy or Zagharit al-Farah. The whole city took to the street to see the beautiful bride and the handsome groom. Unfortunately, today no one noticed that there was a groom's car on the beautiful Nile Street in which there is a groom on his way to his wedding with his beautiful bride. A few tears fell from the fiancé Sami's eyes when he remembered his brother Mustafa's great joyful wedding day. The Coptic girl Suzanne and the fiancé Intisar arrived at the church 15 minutes after the Christian pastor and the fiancé Sami came. The to-be bride wears her white wedding gown elegantly and beautifully, but Sarmata Hanna was surprised when he saw her in her gorgeous wedding dress. His memory took him back to the day she first entered his church. She came in a torn and dirty dress. Her clothes were full of mud, dirt, sweat, blood, and the stench of fish. Her hair was tousled like a crazy girl's hair. Her eyes were surrounded by black circles. Her face was filled with fear, and her body was starving with hunger pangs. She stank like a miserable beggar. Anyone who had seen her that day, while she was sitting on the last seat in the church prayer sanctuary, would have thought that would have thought her to be a mad, homeless girl or a beggar. But today, as she is walking towards him, he can see a different girl. Her eyes revealed the happiness in her heart. Her innocent smile showed him that she had not offended anybody. Her face is joyful and her steps graceful. She seemed to him like an innocent child who had found her parents after a long separation. When the beloved fiancée Intisar sat next to her dear fiancé Sami on their wedding thrones, Reverend Matta Hanna rose to his feet in front of them. Then he took out two gold rings from his pocket. He put one wedding ring on the table and gave the other to Sami. Then the to-be groom was asked to pronounce after the pastor the sacred Christian marriage vow. This ring that I give you, Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, is a token of my love for you. I promise before the most holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and before the holy angels and the Church of Christ, from this day forward to accept you as my wife. I will leave my father and mother and cling to you. I also promise to love you, take care of you, and share everything I have with you. I will honor you with my body and remain faithful to you all the days of my life. Only death can separate us. Sami repeated every word that Pastor Matta said. Then he inserted the golden ring into the left finger of Intisar's hand. After that, Birismatta gave Intisar another wedding ring and asked her to say after him the holy Christian marriage vow. This ring I give to you, Sami Osman al-Tayyib, as a token of my love for you. I promise you before the most holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and before the holy angels and the Church of Christ, from this day onward, accept you as my husband. I also promise to love and honor you with my body and share with you all that I have. I will submit myself to you and remain faithful to you till death do us apart. Intisar repeated the words of the Coptic priest word for word, then put the ring on Sami's finger on his left hand. As a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ, continues Reverend Matta, and pastor of his church, Sami Usman Tayyib and Tisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, I declare you husband and wife in a holy Christian marriage. You can now kiss the bride. The couple hugged each other. Then the handsome groom, Sami, kissed his beautiful bride Intisar on her sweet lips. Susan is the first to go and hug her dear friend Intisar and congratulate her. Then her mother, brother, and friend followed her. All members of the happy family happily embraced the new couple and then warmly shook hands and congratulated them. Each of them gave a wedding gift to the newly wed lovers. After that, the priest Matta Hanna brought the marriage book and made Sami and Intisar enter their names and then sign their holy Christian marriage contract. When the newlyweds signed their marriage contract, Reverend Matta Hanna also added his name and signature. Mrs. Sarah Hanna, Mr. Naji, Miss Sudan, and Mr. Andre wrote their names and addresses and added their signatures as witnesses to the marriage of the handsome groom Sami Usman Tayyib and the beautiful bride Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. After completing the secret Christian marriage contract, Reverend Matta promised the newly married couple that he would tell his secretary tomorrow morning to issue two official marriage contracts and two water baptism certificates, then hand them over to them as proof of their baptism as Christian as well as their holy matrimonial union certificates. This document shall prove their sacred Christian marital union in the church of Christ. When everything was done according to the will of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, and the presence of the holy angels, the five happy couples, and the newly married Christian couple repeated three times in unison the anointed cries of joy. Praise be to God and hallelujah.